Marcus Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his bright yellow Lamborghini as he turned into Willowbrook Estates for the first time. The car's engine made a deep, powerful sound that echoed off the fancy houses on both sides of the street. He had dreamed of this moment for 15 long years. The neighborhood looked like something from a movie. Every house was huge and perfect. The lawns were so green they almost looked fake. Expensive cars sat in every driveway. Marcus smiled as he drove slowly down the street looking at the house numbers. He had worked so hard to get here. Starting as a junior programmer at a small tech company, Marcus had spent countless nights learning new skills and taking on extra projects. He never gave up even when things got tough. Now, at 38 years old, he was finally successful enough to buy his dream home in the best neighborhood in town. The yellow Lamborghini was his reward to himself. He had saved for 3 years to buy it. Every time he looked at the sleek sports car, he remembered all the sacrifices he had made. All the times he ate cheap food to save money. All the weekends he worked while his friends went out. It was all worth it now. Marcus found his new house at the end of the street. It was a beautiful 2-story home with a big front yard and a circular driveway. He pulled up and turned off the engine. The sudden silence felt strange after the rumble of the Lamborghini. As he got out of the car, Marcus noticed he was being watched. A woman across the street stood on her front porch, staring at him with her arms crossed. She was tall and thin, probably in her late 40s, with blonde hair pulled back tight. Even from far away, Marcus could see she was not happy about something. The woman's house was the biggest on the street. Her yard was perfect, with flowers planted in straight lines and bushes cut into perfect shapes. A sign near her mailbox read, "Karen Mitchell, HOA President." Marcus had heard about homeowner associations before, but he had never lived in a neighborhood with one. Marcus grabbed his briefcase from the passenger seat and walked toward his new front door. He could still feel the woman watching him. When he looked back, she was talking on her phone while pointing at his car. Marcus shrugged and went inside to start unpacking. Inside the house, Marcus felt proud and happy. The rooms were big and bright. The kitchen had new appliances and granite counters. Upstairs, the master bedroom had a great view of the neighborhood. This was exactly what he had worked so hard for. Over the next few hours, the moving truck arrived and workers began bringing in his furniture. Marcus directed them where to put everything. The Lamborghini stayed in the driveway, bright and shiny in the afternoon sun. Around 3 o'clock, Marcus noticed a young man walking slowly past his house. The guy looked about 19 or 20, with messy brown hair and expensive clothes. He kept stopping to stare at the Lamborghini, walking around it like he was studying every detail. The young man pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of the car. Then he made a video, pointing at different parts of the vehicle and talking excitedly. Marcus watched from his window, feeling a little uncomfortable. The guy seemed way too interested in his car. After a few minutes, the blonde woman from across the street came marching over. Even from inside his house, Marcus could hear her sharp voice. "Tyler Mitchell, get away from that car right now," she yelled. "Come home this instant." The young man, who was obviously Tyler, rolled his eyes but walked away. The woman, who must be his mother, followed behind him, still talking loudly. Marcus caught bits of what she was saying through his open window. "I don't know who that person thinks he is bringing that flashy car into our neighborhood," she said. "It's completely inappropriate. This is a family community, not some place to show off." Marcus frowned. He had every right to park his car in his own driveway. The woman's comments bothered him, but he tried to ignore them. Maybe she was just having a bad day. Later that evening, Marcus decided to walk around the neighborhood to get familiar with it. He wanted to meet his neighbors and make a good impression. The streets were quiet and peaceful. Kids rode bikes on the sidewalks while their parents watched from front yards. As Marcus walked past the Mitchell house, he saw Karen working in her garden. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. Instead of smiling or saying hello, she just stared at him with cold eyes. Marcus raised his hand in a friendly wave. "Good evening," he called out. "I'm Marcus Thompson. I just moved in down the street." Karen stood up slowly, brushing dirt off her gardening gloves. She looked him up and down like she was inspecting something she did not like. "I'm Karen Mitchell," she said in a flat voice. "I'm the president of the homeowner association here." "Nice to meet you," Marcus said, trying to stay friendly. "This seems like a really nice neighborhood." It was. Karen replied, emphasizing the word was in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable. We have rules here, Mr. Thompson. This is a quiet, respectable community. We don't appreciate anything that disrupts our peaceful way of life. Marcus was not sure what she meant, but her tone was clearly unfriendly. He decided to keep the conversation short. I understand, he said. I'm looking forward to being a good neighbor. Karen just nodded and went back to her gardening without saying goodbye. Marcus continued his walk, feeling puzzled and a little hurt. He had always been respectful and quiet. He could not understand why this woman seemed to dislike him already. When Marcus got back to his house, he saw Tyler Mitchell standing at the end of his driveway again. The young man was staring at the Lamborghini with the same fascinated expression. When he noticed Marcus approaching, Tyler quickly walked away. That night, as Marcus unpacked boxes in his new home, he thought about his first day in Willowbrook Estates. He had expected his neighbors to be welcoming, maybe even excited to meet him. Instead, he felt like an outsider already. Marcus looked out his bedroom window at the quiet street below. His yellow Lamborghini sat in the driveway, looking beautiful under the streetlights. He had earned the right to own that car and live in this neighborhood. No one was going to make him feel bad about his success. But as he watched, Marcus saw a figure move in the shadows near his car. Someone was out there looking at his Lamborghini again. Marcus could not see who it was in the dark, but he had a feeling it was Tyler Mitchell. The young man seemed obsessed with the expensive sports car. Marcus made a mental note to keep an eye on his vehicle. Something about the way Tyler looked at it made him nervous. The car was his pride and joy, and he was not going to let anything happen to it. The first complaint letter arrived 3 days after Marcus moved in. He found it taped to his front door when he came home from work. The official letterhead read, Willowbrook Estates Homeowner Association, and was signed by Karen Mitchell. Dear Mr. Thompson, the letter began, it has come to our attention that your vehicle violates several community standards. The bright yellow color is considered inappropriate for our neighborhood's aesthetic guidelines. Additionally, the noise level of your car disturbs the peaceful environment we work hard to maintain. Please address these issues immediately or face potential fines. Marcus read the letter twice, feeling his anger rise. He had checked all the neighborhood rules before buying the house. Nowhere did it say anything about car colors or engine noise. His Lamborghini was not any louder than other sports cars he had seen in the neighborhood. The next morning, Marcus drove to work as usual. When he returned that evening, he noticed Karen standing in her front yard with a clipboard writing something down. She was clearly watching his house and timing his arrival. 2 days later, another letter appeared. This time, Karen complained that Marcus played his music too loudly. She claimed multiple neighbors had reported the disturbance, though Marcus rarely played music and always kept it at a reasonable volume. Marcus decided to talk to his next-door neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Henderson. When he asked about the music complaint, Mr. Henderson looked confused. Music? I haven't heard any loud music from your house, the old man said. You seem like a very quiet neighbor to me. Much better than the college kids who lived there before you. That weekend, Marcus had his sister and her family visit. They brought their 2 young children, ages 6 and 8. The kids played in the backyard while the adults had a barbecue. Everyone kept the noise down and cleaned up afterward. On Monday morning, Marcus found another letter. Karen complained that his visitors had parked incorrectly and that children playing in the yard created excessive noise. She threatened to fine him, $50 for each violation. Marcus was getting frustrated. Every few days brought a new complaint. Karen said his garbage cans were placed 2 inches too far from the curb. She claimed his lawn needed to be cut more often, even though it looked exactly like every other lawn on the street. She complained that he walked his dog at the wrong times of day. Each letter was more ridiculous than the last. Karen seemed to be watching his every move, looking for anything she could complain about. Marcus started keeping copies of all the letters, thinking he might need them later. During this time, Tyler Mitchell's interest in the Lamborghini was becoming more obvious. Every day when Marcus came home from work, he would see Tyler hanging around nearby. Sometimes the young man pretended to check the mail. Other times he acted like he was just walking by. But his eyes were always on the yellow sports car. Marcus learned more about Tyler from his neighbor, Mr. Henderson. The old man loved to talk and knew everyone's business on the street. That boy has been nothing but trouble, Mr. Henderson said one evening. He got kicked out of college last semester for partying too much. Karen is embarrassed about it, but she won't admit her precious son did anything wrong. Has he always been interested in cars? Marcus asked. Mr. Henderson laughed. Interested? That's one way to put it. He's crashed 2 of his mother's cars in the past year. First, he totaled her BMW when he was texting and driving. Then he crashed her Mercedes into a tree during a snowstorm. Karen keeps buying him new cars, hoping he'll be more careful. This information made Marcus even more nervous about Tyler's attention to his Lamborghini. The young man clearly had a history of reckless driving and bad judgment. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus was washing his car in the driveway when Tyler approached. The young man tried to act casual, but his excitement was obvious. Nice car, Tyler said, running his hand along the hood. I bet this thing can go really fast. It's quick, Marcus replied carefully, not wanting to encourage the conversation. How fast have you had it up to? Tyler asked, his eyes lighting up. I bet I could handle a car like this. I'm a really good driver. Marcus remembered what Mr. Henderson had told him about Tyler's accidents. It takes a lot of experience to drive a car like this safely, he said. It's not like driving a regular car, Tyler laughed. Come on, man. It's just a car. How hard can it be? You just push the gas and steer. It's more complicated than that, Marcus said. These cars have a lot of power. They can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Tyler's expression changed. He looked annoyed that Marcus was not impressed by his confidence. Whatever, he said. I could totally handle it. After Tyler walked away, Marcus felt uneasy. The young man's attitude worried him. Tyler seemed to think driving was easy, despite his history of crashes. Marcus made sure to always lock his car and set the alarm system. The complaints from Karen kept coming. She said his car was parked at the wrong angle in his driveway. She claimed he was receiving too many packages, which made the neighborhood look commercial. She even complained that he mowed his lawn on Sunday mornings, saying it disturbed people who wanted to sleep late. Marcus tried to be patient. He followed every rule exactly and responded politely to each complaint. But Karen always found something new to criticize. It was clear she was determined to make his life difficult. One evening, Marcus decided to attend a homeowner association meeting. He wanted to address Karen's harassment directly and see if other neighbors supported her complaints. The meeting was held in the community center. About 20 neighbors attended, sitting in folding chairs arranged in rows. Karen sat at a table in front, acting very official with her paperwork and gavel. Marcus listened as Karen discussed various neighborhood issues. When she mentioned maintaining community standards, she looked directly at him. Several neighbors also turned to stare at Marcus, making him uncomfortable. When Karen opened the floor for comments, Marcus stood up. I'd like to address some concerns that have been raised about my property, he said politely. The room went quiet. Marcus could feel everyone watching him. I've received several complaint letters about various issues, Marcus continued. I want to assure everyone that I'm committed to being a good neighbor. However, I believe some of these complaints may be unfair. Karen's face turned red. Mr. Thompson, this community has standards that we all must follow. No one is above the rules. I understand that, Marcus replied, but I've checked the official guidelines and I don't believe I've violated any actual rules. Many of the complaints seem to be based on personal opinions rather than written policies. Several neighbors murmured among themselves. Marcus could not tell if they agreed with him or supported Karen. An older woman named Mrs. Garcia raised her hand. I live 2 houses down from Mr. Thompson, she said. I haven't noticed any problems with noise or disturbances. He seems very respectful. Karen looked angry that someone had spoken in Marcus's favor. Well, not everyone is as tolerant as you are, Mrs. Garcia, she said sharply. Another neighbor, a man named Bob Wilson, spoke up. I think we need to be fair here. The young man has a nice car and a nice house. I don't see why that's a problem. Karen slammed her gavel down. This is not about jealousy or personal feelings, she said loudly. This is about maintaining the character of our neighborhood. Marcus could see that Karen was getting more upset as neighbors expressed support for him. Her control over the community was being challenged, and she did not like it. After the meeting, several neighbors approached Marcus to introduce themselves. Most were friendly and welcoming. A few mentioned that they thought Karen was being too harsh with her complaints. But as Marcus walked home, he saw Tyler Mitchell sitting on his mother's front porch, staring at the Lamborghini parked in Marcus's driveway. Even in the dark, Marcus could see the young man's fascination with the expensive car. Tyler was talking on his phone, probably to friends. Marcus could hear bits of the conversation as he walked by. "You should see this car," Tyler was saying. "It's incredible. I bet it goes from 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds. I'd love to take it for a spin sometime." Marcus quickened his pace, feeling more worried than ever. Tyler's interest in the Lamborghini was becoming an obsession. Combined with his history of car accidents and his mother's obvious hostility, the situation felt dangerous. That night, Marcus made sure his car was securely locked and the alarm was set. He also positioned a small security camera in his front window, aimed at the driveway. If anyone tried to mess with his car, he would have evidence. As he went to bed, Marcus could not shake the feeling that trouble was coming. Karen's harassment was getting worse, and Tyler's fascination with the Lamborghini was becoming more intense. Marcus had worked too hard for everything he owned to let anyone take it away from him. Friday evening arrived with perfect spring weather. Marcus was getting ready for his nephew's high school graduation ceremony across town. He had been looking forward to this day for months. His nephew Jake was the first person in their family to graduate with honors and earn a full scholarship to college. Marcus put on his best suit and checked himself in the mirror. He felt proud to be attending such an important family event. The ceremony was scheduled to start at 7 o'clock, and he wanted to arrive early to get good seats. At 6:15, Marcus grabbed his keys and headed to the garage. But then he stopped and thought about it. The graduation was being held at the high school auditorium, and parking would be crowded. Taking the Lamborghini to such a busy event seemed risky. Too many people, too many cars, too many chances for someone to scratch or damage his precious vehicle. Instead, Marcus decided to take his old Honda Civic. It was not as exciting to drive, but it would blend in better at the school. He could save the Lamborghini for special occasions, when he did not have to worry about parking in crowded lots. Marcus left the Lamborghini in his driveway, as he always did. He had a 2-car garage, but he liked being able to see his beautiful car from the house. The bright yellow paint looked amazing in the evening light. Before leaving, Marcus double-checked that the car was locked and the alarm was set. He also made sure all the windows in his house were closed and locked. Marcus had become more careful about security since moving to Willowbrook Estates, especially with Tyler Mitchell's obvious interest in his car. As Marcus drove away in his Honda, he did not notice Tyler watching from his bedroom window across the street. The young man had been keeping track of Marcus's schedule for weeks. He knew Marcus usually went out on Friday evenings, sometimes not returning until late at night. Tyler had been planning this for days. He had watched YouTube videos about breaking into cars and starting engines without keys. He had practiced on his mother's car when she was not home, learning how to disable alarms and hotwire ignition systems. Tyler was not very smart about most things, but he was surprisingly good with electronics and mechanical stuff. At Karen's house, the weekly wine club meeting was just getting started. Every Friday evening, Karen hosted 4 other women from the neighborhood for drinks and gossip. They would sit in her living room, drinking expensive wine and talking about everyone else's business. These meetings usually lasted until after midnight. Karen was in her element during wine club. She loved being the center of attention, sharing the latest neighborhood drama and complaints. Tonight, she was telling the other women about her ongoing battle with Marcus Thompson. "I don't understand why that man thinks he can just move into our community and disrupt everything," Karen said, pouring herself another glass of wine. "That flashy car is completely inappropriate for a family neighborhood like ours." The other women nodded and murmured agreement, though some of them privately thought Karen was being ridiculous. They had all seen Marcus around the neighborhood, and he seemed polite and quiet. But none of them wanted to argue with Karen, especially when she had been drinking. Meanwhile, Tyler was in his room, texting with his friends. He had been kicked out of college for partying too much and failing his classes. Now he was stuck living at home with his mother, feeling bored and frustrated. His friends were all back at school or working jobs, while Tyler had nothing to do but hang around the house. "Dude, you should see this Lamborghini that lives across the street," Tyler texted to his friend Brad. "It's sick. Bright yellow, probably worth like $300K. "No way," Brad texted back. "Take a picture." Tyler had already taken dozens of pictures of the car. He had posted them on social media, pretending they were his. Some of his friends believed him, which made Tyler feel important and cool. "There's this party tonight at Jessica's house," Brad continued. "You should come. Bring the Lambo and everyone will think you're awesome." Tyler stared at the message for a long time. He knew the car was not his, but the idea was so tempting. He could picture himself pulling up to the party in the bright yellow Lamborghini. All his friends would be impressed. Girls would want to talk to him. For once, he would be the coolest guy at the party instead of just Karen Mitchell's loser son. Tyler looked out his window at the car sitting in Marcus's driveway. The house was dark and Marcus's Honda was gone. This might be his only chance. Tyler had been drinking beer in his room, which made the crazy idea seem more reasonable. He was tired of being seen as a failure. His mother was always complaining about him. His friends from college were all doing better than him. Taking the car for just a few hours could not hurt anything. He would bring it back before Marcus even knew it was gone. At 9 o'clock, Tyler made his decision. He put on dark clothes and grabbed a small flashlight. His mother was still laughing loudly with her wine club friends downstairs. They were making so much noise that they would never hear him leave. Tyler snuck out the back door and walked around to Marcus's driveway. The street was quiet, with most neighbors inside watching television or getting ready for bed. Security lights came on as Tyler approached the Lamborghini, but that was normal and would not alarm anyone. Tyler had watched enough YouTube videos to know what to do. First, he needed to disable the alarm system. The car had a sophisticated security setup, but Tyler had learned that most alarms could be bypassed if you knew where to look. Using his flashlight, Tyler found the alarm control module under the hood. It took him 20 minutes to figure out the wiring, but eventually he managed to disconnect the system. The whole time, his heart was beating fast with excitement and fear. Next, Tyler had to get inside the car. This was trickier, but he had practiced on other vehicles. Using a slim gym tool he had bought online, Tyler managed to slip the lock on the driver's side door. The door opened with a soft click. Tyler sat in the driver's seat and felt amazing. The leather was soft and expensive. The dashboard looked like something from a spaceship, with digital displays and fancy controls. Tyler had never been inside such an expensive car before. Starting the engine without keys was the hardest part. Tyler had to remove panels from under the steering wheel to access the ignition wiring. He followed the steps he had memorized from online videos, carefully connecting different colored wires. After 30 minutes of work, the Lamborghini's engine roared to life. The sound was incredible, deep and powerful. Tyler felt like he was in control of a wild animal. He sat for a moment, enjoying the feeling of all that power under his control. Tyler carefully backed the car out of the driveway and onto the street. He drove slowly at first, getting used to how the car handled. It was much more sensitive than any car he had driven before. The steering was very responsive and the acceleration was incredible. As Tyler drove toward the party, he started feeling more confident. The car was easier to control than he had expected. He began driving faster, enjoying the way the Lamborghini responded to his commands. The engine made amazing sounds as he accelerated through turns. Tyler stopped at a gas station to meet his friends Brad and Mike. When they saw him pull up in the bright yellow Lamborghini, their jaws dropped. "Holy crap, Tyler," Brad shouted. "You actually brought it. This thing is insane. How did you get your neighbor to let you borrow it?" Mike asked. Tyler just smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say he's being really cool about it," he lied. Brad and Mike climbed into the car, amazed by the luxury interior. Tyler felt like a celebrity as his friends took selfies and posted videos on social media. For the first time in months, Tyler felt successful and important. "This is going to be the best party ever," Brad said as Tyler pulled back onto the road. "Everyone is going to lose their minds when they see us pull up in this thing." Tyler pressed the accelerator harder, feeling the Lamborghini surge forward with incredible power. He was drunk on the excitement and attention. The speed limit seemed like just a suggestion when you were driving such an amazing machine. As they drove toward the party, Tyler started showing off more. He accelerated quickly from red lights and took turns faster than he should have. The car handled everything perfectly, which made Tyler even more confident. "Dude, you're a natural at this," Mike said from the back seat. "This car was made for you." Tyler grinned and pressed the gas pedal even harder. He had never felt so alive and powerful. The expensive sports car made him feel like he could do anything. All his problems and failures seemed far away when he was behind the wheel of the Lamborghini. None of them noticed the police car that had started following them after Tyler ran a red light. The officer was calling in the license plate number, wondering why 3 young men were driving such an expensive vehicle so recklessly. As they got closer to the party, Tyler's confidence turned into dangerous overconfidence. He was no longer thinking about being careful or bringing the car back safely. All he cared about was showing off and impressing everyone at the party. The crash was only minutes away. The party was in full swing when Tyler arrived at Jessica's house. Cars lined both sides of the street and loud music poured from the open windows. College students and other young people filled the front yard, drinking and laughing. When Tyler pulled up in the bright yellow Lamborghini, everything stopped. Conversations ended mid-sentence as everyone turned to stare at the expensive sports car. The engine's deep rumble cut through the party noise like thunder. Tyler felt like a rock star as he slowly drove past the crowd, letting everyone get a good look at the car. He found a spot right in front of the house where the Lamborghini would be impossible to miss. As he turned off the engine, people started gathering around the vehicle. "Oh my God, Tyler!" Jessica ran over in her high heels, barely believing what she was seeing. "When did you get this car?" "It's incredible." Tyler climbed out of the driver's seat with a huge smile on his face. "Just picked it up today," he lied smoothly. "Thought I'd take it for a test drive to the party." Brad and Mike got out of the passenger seats, grinning at all the attention they were getting. Everyone wanted to take pictures with the Lamborghini. Girls who had never talked to Tyler before suddenly wanted to be his friend. "Can I sit in it?" asked a girl named Amanda, who Tyler had been trying to impress for months. "Sure," Tyler said, opening the driver's door for her. "Maybe later I'll take you for a ride." For the next 2 hours, Tyler was the center of attention. Everyone wanted to hear about the car, touch it, and take selfies with it. Tyler made up stories about how his family had bought it for him as a graduation present. He described imaginary test drives and racing experiences that never happened. The attention was everything Tyler had dreamed of. For once, he was not just Karen Mitchell's disappointing son. He was the cool guy with the amazing car. People were impressed by him, and he felt important and successful. Tyler had several more beers during the party, which made him feel even more confident and invincible. When people asked if he would take them for rides, Tyler started saying yes. The alcohol made the idea seem perfectly safe and reasonable. Around 11:30, Tyler decided it was time to show off even more. "Who wants to see what this baby can really do?" he announced loudly. Several people cheered and volunteered to come along. Tyler chose Amanda and 2 other friends, Jake and Kevin. They all climbed into the Lamborghini, excited and slightly drunk. Tyler started the engine and revved it loudly, making the crowd cheer. The sound echoed off the houses on the quiet residential street. Some neighbors looked out their windows, annoyed by the noise, but Tyler did not care. "Hold on tight," Tyler said as he pulled away from the curb. "You're about to experience some serious speed." Tyler drove slowly through the neighborhood at first, but once they reached the main road, he started accelerating. The Lamborghini responded instantly, pressing everyone back into their seats as it surged forward. "This is amazing," Amanda screamed with excitement from the passenger seat. Tyler felt drunk on power and adrenaline. The car was so much faster than anything he had ever driven before. When he pressed the gas pedal, the Lamborghini shot forward like a rocket. The speed was addictive and intoxicating. "How fast are we going?" Jake asked from the back seat, sounding slightly nervous. Tyler looked at the speedometer. They were doing 75 miles per hour on a road with a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. But the car felt so stable and controlled that the speed seemed perfectly safe. "This is nothing," Tyler bragged. "This car can do way more than this." Tyler turned onto Highway 9, a long straight road that led out of town. This was where he could really open up the Lamborghini and show everyone what it could do. The highway had a speed limit of 65, but Tyler had no intention of following it. As Tyler accelerated, the speedometer climbed rapidly. 80 miles per hour, 90, 100. The car felt smooth and controlled, eating up the road with incredible power. Everyone in the car was screaming with excitement and fear. "Tyler, maybe you should slow down a little," Amanda said, gripping her seat as they flew past other cars. But Tyler was lost in the rush of speed and power. He felt like he was flying, completely in control of an incredible machine. The alcohol in his system made him feel invincible and fearless. That's when Tyler saw the construction zone ahead. Orange signs and barriers marked where the highway was being repaired. The speed limit dropped to 45 miles per hour, and the road narrowed from 4 lanes to 2. A smart driver would have slowed down immediately. But Tyler was drunk, overconfident, and showing off for his passengers. Instead of braking, he decided to thread the needle through the construction zone at high speed. "Watch this," Tyler said, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Tyler, no," Amanda screamed as she saw the concrete barriers rushing toward them. Tyler was doing 85 miles per hour when he entered the construction zone. The road surface was rough and uneven, causing the Lamborghini to bounce and shake. Tyler fought to control the steering as the car became unstable. The narrow lane was barely wide enough for the sports car. Concrete barriers lined both sides with no room for error. Other cars had slowed down and were driving carefully through the work zone. But Tyler was flying past them like they were standing still. Halfway through the construction area, Tyler realized he was in trouble. The car was moving too fast for the narrow space and rough pavement. The steering felt loose and unpredictable. The concrete barriers seemed to be closing in on both sides. Tyler tried to slow down, but it was too late. When he hit the brakes, the Lamborghini started to slide on the uneven road surface. The back end of the car swung out to the right, sending them into a dangerous skid. "Oh, God." Kevin screamed from the back seat as the car spun sideways. Tyler yanked the steering wheel to the left, trying to regain control. But he overcorrected, and the car swung violently in the other direction. The Lamborghini was now sliding sideways at 70 miles per hour, completely out of control. The right side of the car clipped a concrete barrier with a tremendous crash. The impact sent the Lamborghini spinning like a top, metal and plastic flying in all directions. Tyler could hear his passengers screaming, but the sound seemed to come from very far away. The car hit the left barrier next, then bounced back toward the right side of the construction zone. Each impact made the spinning worse, turning the Lamborghini into a yellow blur of destruction. Finally, the car broke through the barriers completely and launched into the air. For a moment that seemed to last forever. The Lamborghini was flying over the drainage ditch beside the highway. Tyler could see the ground rushing up toward them through the windshield. The car hit the bottom of the ditch and flipped end over end. The roof crushed inward as the Lamborghini rolled multiple times before finally coming to rest upside down in 2 feet of muddy water. Steam rose from the destroyed engine as fluids leaked into the ditch. The bright yellow paint was scratched and dented beyond recognition. All the windows were shattered and the doors were crumpled like tin cans. Tyler hung upside down in his seatbelt, blood running from cuts on his face and arms. His left arm was bent at a wrong angle, clearly broken. His head felt fuzzy and confused from hitting the steering wheel during the crash. Amanda was unconscious in the passenger seat, blood covering her face from a deep cut on her forehead. In the back seat, Jake was moaning and trying to move, but Kevin was not making any sounds at all. His back was twisted in a way that looked very wrong. The silence after the crash was deafening. The only sounds were water dripping from the destroyed car and the distant noise of traffic on the highway above. Steam continued to rise from the engine, and Tyler could smell gasoline and burning plastic. Tyler tried to move but felt sharp pain shooting through his arm and head. He could taste blood in his mouth and felt dizzy and sick. The reality of what had happened was starting to sink in through his shock and confusion. The Lamborghini was completely destroyed. His passengers were badly hurt. Tyler was badly hurt. This was not just a fun joyride anymore. This was a disaster that would change everything. Above them on the highway, other drivers were stopping and calling 911. Within minutes, Tyler could hear sirens approaching. Police cars, ambulances, and fire trucks were racing toward the crash scene. As Tyler hung upside down in the wreckage, he started to understand how much trouble he was in. The car was stolen. He was drunk. His friends were seriously injured. This was not something he could talk his way out of or have his mother fix for him. The sirens were getting louder now. Soon, paramedics would pull them from the wreckage and ask questions Tyler did not want to answer. The police would want to know how a 19-year-old came to be driving a $300,000 sports car. Tyler closed his eyes and wished he could go back in time to 3 hours ago. When taking the car, it seemed like such a good idea, but it was too late for wishes now. The damage was done and there was no way to undo it. The first police officer reached the crash scene and looked down into the ditch at the destroyed Lamborghini. Even from a distance, Tyler could hear him calling for more ambulances and a helicopter. This was going to be a long, terrible night. The doorbell rang at 2:15 in the morning. pulling Karen from her wine-induced sleep on the living room couch. Her wine club friends had left around midnight, and Karen had dozed off while cleaning up empty glasses and wine bottles. The house was dark and quiet. Karen stumbled to the front door, still groggy and confused. Through the peephole, she could see 2 police officers standing on her porch. Their serious expressions and the flashing lights from their patrol cars in the driveway made her stomach drop with dread. "Mrs. Mitchell?" the older officer asked when Karen opened the door. "I'm Officer Rodriguez, and this is Officer Chen. We need to speak with you about your son, Tyler." Karen's first instinct was to lie. "Tyler is upstairs sleeping," she said quickly. "He's been home all evening. Is there some kind of problem?" Officer Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner. "Ma'am, your son was involved in a serious car accident about an hour ago. He's been taken to County General Hospital with injuries." The words hit Karen like a physical blow. She gripped the doorframe to keep from falling. "That's impossible," she said, her voice shaking. "Tyler doesn't have a car right now. He's been grounded from driving since his last accident. Mrs. Mitchell, your son was driving a yellow Lamborghini that was reported stolen earlier tonight," Officer Chen said gently. "The vehicle belongs to your neighbor, Marcus Thompson." Karen's mind reeled as she tried to process what the officers were telling her. Tyler stealing a car? It was unthinkable. Her son had made mistakes before, but he was not a criminal. There had to be some misunderstanding. "No," Karen said firmly, shaking her head. "Tyler would never steal anything. Mr. Thompson must have given him permission to use the car. Maybe they made some kind of arrangement I didn't know about." Officer Rodriguez pulled out a notebook. "Ma'am, Mr. Thompson was at his nephew's graduation ceremony when the vehicle was taken. He had no idea it was missing until we contacted him at the hospital. There was no permission given." Karen felt like the world was spinning around her. This could not be happening. Tyler was irresponsible and immature, but he was not a thief. There had to be an explanation that made sense. "How badly is Tyler hurt?" Karen asked, finally focusing on what was most important. "He has a broken arm and a concussion," Officer Chen replied. "He'll recover, but he's going to face serious charges. Grand theft auto, reckless endangerment, and destruction of property." Karen's shock quickly turned to anger, but not at Tyler. Instead, she found herself blaming Marcus Thompson. "This is all that man's fault," she said, her voice rising. "What kind of person leaves such an expensive car sitting in their driveway? It's like leaving candy out and then being surprised when children take it." The officers looked at each other with surprise. "Mrs. Mitchell, your son is 19 years old," Officer Rodriguez said carefully. "He's not a child who doesn't understand right from wrong." "Tyler has always been impulsive," Karen said, starting to pace back and forth. "Mr. Thompson should have known better than to tempt him with that flashy car. If he really cared about security, he would have kept it in his garage." Officer Chen tried to redirect the conversation. "Ma'am, we need to focus on your son's actions. He broke into a vehicle that didn't belong to him and drove it recklessly. Other people were injured in the crash." The mention of other injuries stopped Karen cold. "Other people? What other people?" "Your son had 3 passengers in the car," Officer Rodriguez explained. "One of them, Kevin Martinez, has serious spinal injuries. He's been airlifted to the trauma center downtown." Karen felt sick to her stomach. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Not only was Tyler in trouble, but he had hurt other people too. Karen's mind raced as she tried to figure out how to minimize the damage. "I need to call my lawyer," Karen said suddenly, "and I need to get to the hospital to see Tyler." "That's fine, Mrs. Mitchell," Officer Chen said. "But we also need to inform you that your homeowner's insurance will likely be contacted about this incident. The damage to Mr. Thompson's vehicle is extensive." After the police left, Karen sat in her living room trying to make sense of what had happened. How had Tyler gotten from his bedroom to a hospital bed in a stolen car? She had been home all evening with her wine club friends. She should have known what her son was doing. Karen's first call was to her lawyer, Harold Brennan. She woke him up at 3 in the morning, but Harold had been Karen's attorney for years and was used to her dramatic emergencies. "Harold, Tyler has been arrested," Karen said without any introduction. "The police are claiming he stole a car and crashed it. I need you to meet me at the hospital right away." Harold asked several questions about the details of the case. With each answer Karen gave, his voice became more serious and concerned. "Karen, this sounds very serious," he said finally. "If Tyler really stole a $300,000 car and injured someone, He's looking at potential felony charges. It's not that simple, Karen insisted. The car owner was basically asking for this to happen. He left that expensive vehicle sitting in his driveway like bait. Tyler has impulse control issues. Mr. Thompson should have been more responsible. There was a long pause on the phone. Karen, you need to understand something, Harold said carefully. Victim blaming is not going to help Tyler's case. In fact, it could make things much worse if you say things like that in court. But Karen was not ready to accept that Tyler was entirely at fault. In her mind, there had to be someone else to blame. Marcus Thompson was the obvious target. If he had not moved into their neighborhood with his flashy car and disruptive presence, none of this would have happened. Karen drove to the hospital in her Mercedes, her mind working overtime to construct a narrative that made Tyler look less guilty. By the time she arrived at County General, she had convinced herself that Marcus Thompson bore significant responsibility for what had happened. Tyler was in the emergency room, his left arm in a cast and his head wrapped in bandages. He looked young and scared, nothing like the confident criminal the police had described. Karen's heart broke when she saw her injured son. "Mom," Tyler said weakly when Karen approached his bed. "I'm so sorry. I messed up really bad." Karen sat down beside him and took his good hand. "Don't worry, sweetheart," she said softly. "We're going to figure this out. Mr. Thompson shares some responsibility for this situation." Tyler looked confused. "What do you mean?" "It's not his fault I took his car." "Tyler, that man has been flaunting his wealth in our neighborhood for weeks," Karen said, her voice getting stronger. "He knew you were interested in his car. He should have taken better precautions." Harold Brennan arrived an hour later and immediately asked to speak with Karen privately. In the hospital corridor, he explained the serious nature of Tyler's situation. "Karen, Tyler is looking at multiple felony charges," Harold said bluntly. "The stolen vehicle was worth over $300,000. That's grand theft in the first degree. The reckless driving that caused injuries to other people makes it even worse." "But Tyler didn't mean to hurt anyone," Karen protested. "It was an accident." "That doesn't matter legally," Harold replied. "Tyler made a deliberate choice to steal the car and drive it recklessly. The injuries to the other passengers were a predictable result of his actions." Karen felt desperate and cornered. Everything she had worked for in her life was falling apart. Her reputation in the neighborhood, Tyler's future, their financial security. It was all at risk because of one stupid decision her son had made. "What if we argue that Mr. Thompson's car was an attractive nuisance?" Karen suggested. "Like a swimming pool without a fence. He should have known it would tempt young people." Harold shook his head firmly. "Karen, that defense will not work. Tyler is an adult, not a child. And cars parked in driveways are not considered attractive nuisances under the law." "Then what about Tyler's drinking?" Karen asked desperately. "He has a problem with alcohol. Maybe we can argue that he wasn't fully responsible for his actions." "Being drunk doesn't excuse criminal behavior," Harold said patiently. "If anything, it makes the reckless endangerment charges stronger." As the hours passed at the hospital, Karen became more and more convinced that Marcus Thompson was partly to blame for the situation. In her mind, his presence in the neighborhood had created an environment that led to Tyler's poor decision. When Marcus Thompson arrived at the hospital to check on the injured passengers, Karen confronted him in the waiting room. "I hope you're satisfied," Karen said loudly, causing other people to turn and stare. "Your need to show off your wealth has led to this tragedy." Marcus looked shocked and confused. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm just here to make sure the kids who were hurt are okay. I'm not here to cause any problems." "Those kids wouldn't have been hurt if you had been more responsible with your property," Karen continued, her voice getting louder. "You knew Tyler was fascinated by your car. You should have kept it locked up in your garage." Marcus tried to stay calm despite Karen's accusations. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry Tyler was hurt, but I didn't do anything wrong. I parked my car in my own driveway just like everyone else in the neighborhood." "Don't pretend you're innocent in this," Karen snapped. "You've been flaunting that car since the day you moved in. You wanted attention, and now you have it." The first legal papers arrived by certified mail 3 days after the crash. Karen signed for the thick envelope with shaking hands, knowing it contained bad news. Inside were formal criminal charges against Tyler from the district attorney's office. The charges were worse than Karen had expected. Grand theft auto in the first degree, reckless endangerment with serious bodily injury, destruction of property over $50,000. Driving under the influence. Each charge carried potential prison time, and together they could mean years behind bars for Tyler. Harold Brennan met with Karen and Tyler at his law office to explain the gravity of the situation. Tyler looked pale and scared as Harold read through each charge and its potential penalties. The grand theft charge alone carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in state prison, Harold explained. Since the vehicle was worth over $300,000, the prosecution will push for the maximum penalty. Tyler started crying when he heard about the potential prison time. "I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt," he said through his tears. "I just wanted to go to a party. I was going to bring the car back." "Intent doesn't matter for most of these charges," Harold replied gently. "You took someone else's property without permission and caused serious injuries while using it recklessly. The law is very clear about consequences for these actions." Karen had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. "What about plea bargains? Can we negotiate with the prosecutors?" Harold nodded. "We can try, but the prosecution has a very strong case. Tyler was caught red-handed in a stolen vehicle after a serious crash that injured multiple people. They don't have much incentive to offer a generous plea deal." The next piece of bad news came from Tyler's victims. Kevin Martinez, the passenger with spinal injuries, remained in the trauma center with uncertain prospects for recovery. His family had hired a personal injury lawyer and was preparing to sue Tyler for medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering. The Martinez family's medical bills are already over $200,000, Harold informed Karen during a phone call, and Kevin may need care for the rest of his life if his spinal injury doesn't heal properly. Karen felt sick to her stomach. The financial implications were staggering. Even if Tyler avoided prison, the civil lawsuits could bankrupt their family. Karen had some savings and her house was paid off, but it would not be enough to cover damages that could reach millions of dollars. The situation got worse when Marcus Thompson's insurance company contacted Karen. They were demanding full restitution for the destroyed Lamborghini, plus additional damages for the theft and resulting investigation. The vehicle was worth $350,000 when it was stolen. The insurance adjuster explained over the phone. "We're seeking that amount plus interest, storage fees, and administrative costs. The total comes to approximately $400,000. Karen tried to argue that the amount was excessive. "Surely a car that was completely destroyed wasn't worth that much," she said desperately. "Mrs. Mitchell, we have professional appraisals and purchase records," the adjuster replied coldly. "The vehicle was less than a year old and in perfect condition. Our valuation is completely accurate." Karen's homeowner's insurance company delivered more bad news. They refused to cover any part of the incident because Tyler had committed a criminal act. Deliberate illegal actions were specifically excluded from their policy coverage. "We sympathize with your situation, Mrs. Mitchell," the insurance representative said. "But car theft is a criminal act, not an accident. Our policy doesn't cover damages resulting from criminal behavior by family members." As the legal and financial pressures mounted, Karen became more desperate to find someone else to blame. She convinced herself that Marcus Thompson should share responsibility for what happened. Karen called Harold with a new theory. "What if we argue that Marcus was negligent in how he secured his vehicle?" she suggested. "He left it in his driveway where Tyler could see it every day. That's like leaving a loaded gun where children can reach it." Harold sighed deeply. "Karen, we've discussed this before. Tyler is 19 years old, not a child. Adults are responsible for their own criminal actions regardless of what opportunities might be available." "But Marcus knew Tyler was interested in the car," Karen insisted. "He saw Tyler looking at it all the time. He should have taken better precautions." "Even if that were true, it wouldn't matter legally," Harold explained patiently. "Car owners have no legal obligation to prevent theft by keeping their vehicles hidden. Tyler chose to break into and steal the car. That choice makes him liable for all resulting damages." The pressure from the Martinez family's lawsuit intensified. When Kevin's doctors determined that his spinal injury would likely cause permanent partial paralysis, the young man would never walk normally again, and his future earning capacity was severely limited. The Martinez family is now seeking $5 million in damages, Harold informed Karen during another grim meeting. They have medical experts who will testify that Kevin's injuries will require lifetime care. Karen felt the walls closing in around her family, Tyler was looking at years in prison, and the financial damages could destroy everything they had worked for. Her reputation in the neighborhood was already ruined, with neighbors whispering about the scandal whenever she appeared in public. The Willowbrook Estates Homeowner Association held an emergency meeting to discuss Karen's continued role as president. Several board members felt that her son's criminal actions reflected poorly on the community's leadership. "We think it would be best if Karen stepped down from her position," board member Patricia Wong said diplomatically. "Given the circumstances, it seems appropriate for her to focus on her family's legal issues." Karen was furious at the suggestion. "My personal problems have nothing to do with my ability to lead this community," she argued. "I've been an excellent president for 8 years." But the other board members had already made up their minds. They voted 4-1 to ask for Karen's resignation, with only Karen herself voting against the measure. The legal proceedings moved forward with depressing inevitability. Tyler's arraignment was scheduled for the following month, where he would formally plead guilty or not guilty to all charges. Harold warned that a not guilty plea would likely result in a jury trial with harsh publicity and maximum penalties if Tyler was convicted. The prosecution has video evidence of Tyler driving recklessly before the crash, Harold explained. They have witness testimony from the party guests about his drinking. They have the broken car and injured victims. There's no realistic chance of winning at trial. Tyler seemed to understand the hopelessness of his situation better than his mother did. "Maybe I should just plead guilty and ask the judge for mercy," he said quietly during one of their meetings. "Absolutely not," Karen said firmly. "We're going to fight these charges." "Harold, what about arguing that Tyler was mentally impaired by alcohol, or that he was influenced by peer pressure from his friends?" Harold shook his head. "Karen, those arguments won't work. Being drunk makes Tyler more guilty, not less. And peer pressure is not a legal defense for adult criminal behavior." As weeks passed, the financial pressure became overwhelming. Legal fees for Tyler's criminal defense were already approaching $50,000. The civil lawsuit preparation costs were adding more expenses every day. Karen was forced to take out a second mortgage on her house to pay for legal representation. She also had to sell her Mercedes and several pieces of expensive jewelry to cover Tyler's bail and other immediate expenses. The stress was affecting Karen's health and mental state. She lost weight and had trouble sleeping. Her wine club friends stopped inviting her to social events, embarrassed to be associated with the scandal. Even her closest neighbors began avoiding her. Marcus Thompson, meanwhile, was dealing with his own challenges. His insurance company was slow to process his claim, leaving him without transportation while they investigated the theft. He had to rent cars and take time off work to deal with police reports and legal proceedings. But Marcus also felt sympathy for Kevin Martinez and the other injured passengers. He visited Kevin in the hospital several times, bringing flowers and offering support to the young man's family. "I feel terrible that my car was involved in hurting these kids," Marcus told Kevin's parents. "If there's anything I can do to help with medical expenses or other needs, please let me know." The Martinez family was grateful for Marcus's concern and generosity. They understood that he was also a victim of Tyler's reckless actions. Their anger was directed entirely at Tyler and Karen, not at the man whose car had been stolen. As Tyler's legal troubles mounted, Karen became more isolated and desperate. Her attempts to blame Marcus Thompson had backfired, making her look unreasonable and unsympathetic. Her denial of Tyler's responsibility was making the situation worse for everyone involved. Harold Brennan finally had a frank conversation with Karen about reality. "Karen, you need to understand something," he said seriously. "Tyler is going to face consequences for his actions whether you accept it or not. Your job as his mother is to help him take responsibility and show genuine remorse. That's the only way to minimize the damage." The breaking point came during a heated settlement conference at Harold Brennan's law office. Representatives from the district attorney's office, Marcus Thompson's insurance company, and the Martinez family's legal team had gathered to discuss possible plea agreements and damage payments. Karen sat at the conference table, surrounded by lawyers and insurance adjusters who were discussing her family's future like a business transaction. The numbers being thrown around were astronomical. Criminal fines, restitution payments, medical expenses, and pain and suffering damages could easily exceed $7 million. Mrs. Mitchell, "We need to be realistic about your son's situation," said Prosecutor Jennifer Walsh. "Tyler committed multiple felonies that resulted in serious injuries to innocent people. The state is willing to consider a plea agreement, but it would still involve significant prison time." Karen had been relatively quiet during most of the meeting, but the mention of prison time for Tyler triggered something inside her. "This whole situation is unfair," she said, her voice rising. "My son made a mistake, but he's not the only one responsible for what happened." All eyes in the room turned to Karen. Harold Brennan looked nervous, knowing his client was about to say something that would damage their case. "That car was a temptation that never should have been left where Tyler could see it every day," Karen continued, pointing an accusing finger at Marcus Thompson's insurance representative. Mr. Thompson knew Tyler was interested in his vehicle. He should have been more responsible. The prosecutor looked stunned by Karen's continued insistence on blaming the victim. "Mrs. Mitchell, your son broke into and stole someone else's property. The location of that property is completely irrelevant to his criminal liability. Tyler has impulse control issues," Karen said desperately. "Mr. Thompson took advantage of that by flaunting his wealth in our neighborhood. If he had really cared about security, he would have kept that car locked away where it couldn't tempt anyone." Marcus Thompson had remained silent during most of the meeting, but Karen's accusations finally pushed him to respond. "Mrs. Mitchell, I bought that car with money I earned through 15 years of hard work," he said quietly. "I had every right to park it in my own driveway. Your son chose to steal it. Nobody forced him to do anything." Karen turned on Marcus with fury in her eyes. "You don't belong in our neighborhood anyway," she snapped. "You moved in with your flashy car and your attitude, disrupting our peaceful community. Tyler never would have done this if you hadn't shown up." The room fell completely silent. Even Harold Brennan looked shocked by his client's outburst. The racial undertones of Karen's comments were obvious to everyone present, making the situation even more uncomfortable. Marcus Thompson stared at Karen for a long moment before responding. "Mrs. Mitchell, I earned my place in that neighborhood just like everyone else. I work hard, pay my taxes, and try to be a good neighbor. Your son stole my car and nearly killed several people. That has nothing to do with my race or my right to live wherever I choose." The word race hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Karen realized she had revealed more about her motivations than she intended. Her harassment of Marcus had not been about car noise or neighborhood standards. It had been about her discomfort with having a successful black neighbor. Prosecutor Walsh looked disgusted by Karen's comments. "Mrs. Mitchell, I think we need to take a break," she said coldly. "Your attitude is making it very difficult to reach any kind of reasonable agreement." During the break, Harold Brennan pulled Karen into a private office for an emergency conversation. "Karen, what you just said in there was completely unacceptable," he said angrily. "You basically admitted to racial bias in front of a room full of lawyers. Do you have any idea how that makes Tyler look?" Karen felt confused and defensive. "I wasn't talking about race," she protested. "I was talking about someone who doesn't fit into our community." "Karen, listen to yourself," Harold said firmly. "Marcus Thompson is a software engineer who bought an expensive house in a nice neighborhood. The only thing that makes him different from your other neighbors is the color of his skin. Your comments made that crystal clear." For the first time since the crash, Karen was forced to confront the ugly truth about her own motivations. She had spent weeks blaming Marcus for Tyler's crimes, but the real reason for her hostility had nothing to do with cars or noise complaints. Harold continued his harsh assessment. "Your behavior toward Mr. Thompson is going to be used against Tyler in court. The prosecution will argue that Tyler learned his entitled attitude from you. They'll say he felt justified in taking what he wanted because his mother taught him that certain people don't deserve respect." The weight of Harold's words hit Karen like a physical blow. Her attempts to protect Tyler had actually made his situation worse. Her prejudice and entitlement had created the toxic environment that led to Tyler's criminal behavior. When the meeting resumed, Karen tried to apologize for her outburst. "I'm sorry for what I said earlier," she began. "I'm under a lot of stress and I said things I didn't mean, but the damage was already done." The other lawyers in the room had heard Karen's true feelings and they would not forget her comments. Any sympathy they might have felt for Tyler's situation had evaporated. The settlement conference ended without any agreements. The prosecution withdrew their plea offer, deciding to pursue maximum penalties at trial. The civil lawyers indicated they would seek punitive damages in addition to compensatory payments. That evening, Karen sat alone in her house, finally forced to confront the reality of what had happened. Tyler was facing years in prison because of choices he had made. The financial damages would destroy their family's security. Her reputation and social standing were ruined. But worse than all of that was the growing realization that Karen herself bore responsibility for creating the environment that led to Tyler's crimes. Her years of entitlement and prejudice had taught Tyler that he could take what he wanted without consequences. Karen thought about all the complaint letters she had sent to Marcus. Every accusation had been based on her discomfort with having a successful black neighbor, not on any actual violations of community rules. She had tried to drive him away because his presence challenged her assumptions about who belonged in her neighborhood. Tyler had watched his mother's behavior for months. He had seen her attempt to harass Marcus Thompson for no valid reason. He had learned that certain people could be treated with disrespect and contempt. When Tyler decided to steal Marcus's car, he was following lessons his mother had taught him. The next morning, Karen received a call from her sister Linda, who lived across the country. Linda had seen news reports about Tyler's arrest and was calling to offer support. "Karen, I'm so sorry about what Tyler is going through," Linda said. "But I have to ask, what were you thinking when you made those comments about your neighbor in the legal meeting?" Karen was surprised that news of her outburst had already spread.
"How did you hear about that?"
"Harold called me," Linda explained. "He's worried that you're making Tyler's situation worse with your attitude. Karen, you need to take a hard look at your own behavior before you blame anyone else for this mess." Linda's words forced Karen to examine her actions more honestly. "I was just trying to protect Tyler," Karen said weakly. "By blaming an innocent man for your son's crimes?" Linda asked bluntly. "Karen, Tyler stole a car and hurt people. That's on him, not on his victim. Your job is to help Tyler take responsibility, not to find scapegoats." After the phone call, Karen walked through her empty house, thinking about the choices that had led to this disaster. She had spent 8 years as HOA president, convinced that her role was to maintain standards and keep undesirable elements out of the neighborhood. But Karen was starting to understand that her definition of undesirable had been based on prejudice rather than legitimate concerns. Marcus Thompson was exactly the kind of neighbor any community would want. Successful, quiet, and respectful. Her attempts to drive him away had been wrong from the beginning. Karen also realized that Tyler's entitled attitude had been shaped by years of watching his mother get her way through intimidation and complaints. She had taught him that rules didn't apply to people like them, and that other people's rights were less important than their desires. The turning point came when Karen visited Tyler in jail, where he was being held pending trial. Her son looked thin and scared, nothing like the confident young man who had stolen the Lamborghini. "Mom, I've been thinking about what I did," Tyler said quietly. "I hurt people who didn't deserve it. Kevin might never walk right again because of me. I can't blame anyone else for that." Karen was surprised by Tyler's acceptance of responsibility. "Tyler, you made a mistake, but—" "No, Mom," Tyler interrupted. "It wasn't a mistake. I chose to steal that car. I chose to drive drunk. I chose to show off instead of being careful. People got hurt because of choices I made." For the first time since the crash, Karen heard Tyler taking full responsibility for his actions. Her son was showing the maturity and remorse that she had failed to demonstrate. "I need to make this right somehow," Tyler continued. "I know I can't undo what happened, but I need to try to pay for the damage I caused." "Will you help me do that?" Karen stood on Marcus Thompson's front porch for 5 minutes before finding the courage to ring the doorbell. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say dozens of times, but now that the moment had arrived, all her carefully planned words seemed inadequate. When Marcus opened the door, his expression showed surprise and wariness. The last time they had spoken, Karen had accused him of being responsible for Tyler's crimes. Marcus had every reason to slam the door in her face. "Mr. Thompson," Karen began, her voice shaking slightly, "I was wondering if I could speak with you for a few minutes. I have something important to say." Marcus studied her face for a moment, perhaps seeing something different in her demeanor. "All right," he said cautiously. "Would you like to come inside, or would you prefer to talk out here?" "Inside would be better," Karen replied. "This is a private conversation." Marcus led her into his living room, which was tastefully decorated with comfortable furniture and family photos. Karen noticed pictures of Marcus with an elderly couple who were probably his parents. and with young people who might be nieces and nephews. They sat in chairs facing each other, with an awkward silence filling the space between them. Karen took a deep breath and began the most difficult conversation of her life. "Mr. Thompson, I owe you an apology," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "Not just for what Tyler did, but for my own behavior over the past several months. I was wrong about everything." Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression remaining neutral. "When you moved into this neighborhood, I saw your success and your beautiful car, and instead of feeling happy for you, I felt threatened," Karen continued. "I convinced myself that you didn't belong here, that you were somehow disrupting our community. But the truth is I was uncomfortable because you challenged my assumptions about who deserved to live in a place like this." Karen paused, struggling to find the right words for what she needed to say next. "I need to be honest about something that's hard for me to admit. My treatment of you was influenced by racial prejudice. I didn't want to face that truth, but I can't ignore it anymore." Marcus's expression softened slightly, perhaps recognizing the courage it took for Karen to make such an admission. "All those complaint letters I sent you were based on my own biases, not on any real violations of community rules," Karen said. "You were a perfect neighbor and I treated you terribly because of my own prejudices." Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing Karen's words. "Mrs. Mitchell, I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to hear you acknowledge what really happened. There's more I need to tell you," Karen continued. "Tyler watched my behavior toward you for months. He saw me trying to harass you and make you feel unwelcome. I taught him that certain people could be treated with disrespect. When he stole your car, he was following lessons I had taught him about entitlement and prejudice." This admission clearly surprised Marcus. "I hadn't thought about it that way," he said quietly. "I'm not making excuses for Tyler's choices," Karen said quickly. "He's 19 years old and he's responsible for his own actions. But I created the toxic environment that made those choices seem acceptable to him. I failed as a mother and as a neighbor." Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a folder of financial documents. "Mr. Thompson, I want to discuss making restitution for your car and all the other damages Tyler caused. I know I can't undo what happened, but I want to make it right financially." Marcus looked at the papers Karen was offering. "Mrs. Mitchell, my insurance company is handling the claim for the car. You don't need to—" "Yes, I do," Karen interrupted firmly. "Tyler stole your property and destroyed it. The insurance money comes from a pool that all policyholders pay into. That means other innocent people are paying for Tyler's crimes. I want to reimburse your insurance company directly, so the cost falls on our family where it belongs." Marcus was clearly surprised by Karen's insistence on taking full financial responsibility. "That's very generous, but the amount is substantial. Are you sure you can afford it?" Karen nodded. "I've liquidated my retirement accounts and taken out a second mortgage on my house. I'm also selling some jewelry and other possessions. It won't cover everything immediately, but I can set up a payment plan to handle the full amount over time." "The car was worth about $350,000, Marcus said carefully. "Plus there are other costs from the investigation and legal proceedings." "I understand," Karen replied. "My lawyer estimates the total amount at around $400,000. I can make an initial payment of $150,000 within 2 weeks, and then monthly payments of $5,000 until the balance is paid off." Marcus stared at Karen in amazement. "Mrs. Mitchell, that would take you years to pay off. Are you really willing to do that?" "Mr. Thompson, my son stole your car and nearly killed several people while using it," Karen said firmly. "The financial consequences should fall on our family, not on insurance companies or taxpayers or anyone else. This is our responsibility." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, clearly thinking about Karen's offer. Finally, he spoke. "Mrs. Mitchell, I have to ask, what changed your mind about all this? A few weeks ago, you were blaming me for Tyler's actions." Karen looked down at her hands, feeling ashamed of her previous behavior. "Several things happened that forced me to face the truth. Tyler took responsibility for his actions and asked me to help him make things right. My lawyer told me that my attitude was making Tyler's legal situation worse. And my sister called to tell me I was acting like a bigot." "It must have been hard to hear those things," Marcus said with unexpected sympathy. "It was," Karen admitted, "but it was necessary. I spent months trying to blame everyone except the people who were actually responsible, Tyler and me. I wasted time and energy that should have been spent on making amends." Karen pulled out another document from her folder. There's something else I want to discuss. Kevin Martinez, the young man who was paralyzed in the crash, his family is suing Tyler for medical expenses and other damages. I want to contribute to his care as well. Marcus was impressed by Karen's comprehensive approach to taking responsibility. What did you have in mind? Kevin's medical bills are already over $200,000 and he'll need ongoing care for the rest of his life, Karen explained. I can't pay for everything, but I want to set up a trust fund to help with his expenses. I'm planning to contribute $50,000 initially and then add money to it regularly. That's incredibly generous, Marcus said. Kevin's family will be grateful for any help they can get. Karen stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where all this drama had unfolded. Mr. Thompson, I need to ask for your help with something else. The other passengers in the car, Amanda, Jake, and Brad, they were also hurt in the crash. Their medical bills are smaller than Kevin's, but they're still substantial. Would you be willing to help me contact their families to discuss restitution? Marcus was surprised that Karen wanted to take responsibility for all the victims, not just the most seriously injured ones. Of course I'll help, he said. Those kids were hurt because of what happened to my car. I want to see them taken care of too. Over the next hour, Karen and Marcus worked together to create a comprehensive plan for making amends to everyone who had been affected by Tyler's crimes. Karen would pay full restitution for the car, contribute to Kevin's medical trust fund, and provide financial assistance to the other injured passengers. Mrs. Mitchell, I have to say I'm impressed by how thoroughly you're approaching this, Marcus said as they finished their planning. Most people would try to pay as little as possible and let the insurance companies handle everything. I spent too much time looking for ways to avoid responsibility, Karen replied. Now I want to make sure we do everything possible to help the people Tyler hurt. Before Karen left, Marcus asked her about Tyler's legal situation. How is he handling the prospect of prison time? Karen's expression became sad. Better than I am, honestly. Tyler has accepted that he needs to face consequences for his actions. He's planning to plead guilty and ask the judge for mercy. His lawyer thinks he might get 2 to 3 years with the possibility of early release for good behavior. I'm sorry it's come to that, Marcus said sincerely. Tyler made terrible choices, but he's still young. Hopefully he can learn from this and build a better life when he gets out. I hope so too, Karen said. I'm planning to use this time to get counseling for both of us. Tyler needs to understand why he felt entitled to take what he wanted, and I need to confront my own prejudices and figure out how to be a better person. As Karen prepared to leave, Marcus made an unexpected offer. Mrs. Mitchell, would you be interested in attending some community events with me? There are organizations in town that work on racial reconciliation and social justice issues. It might be helpful for both of us. Karen was surprised but grateful for the invitation. I would like that very much. I have a lot to learn about being a better neighbor and community member. 6 months later, Tyler was sentenced to 2 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 18 months. He had pleaded guilty to all charges and expressed genuine remorse for his actions.